the sacred numbers that basically appear over and over and over again in all of our imperial measurement system. Our imperial system has incredible information in it, and I believe that this knowledge of the universe has been known on the planet for thousands of years, and we simply have forgotten and lost it. You have the 2,160 miles is the diameter of the moon. 864,000 miles is the diameter of the sun. Now, have you ever thought about that? That the sun and the moon are exactly 400 times the distance from each other. So the distance from Earth to the moon is 400 times closer than the distance from Earth to the sun. And also, the exact diameter is 400 times difference as well. So this is why we have a perfect eclipse. Because if it weren't exactly 400 times smaller and 400 times closer, we would not see the moon as being the same size as the sun. Have you ever noticed that when you look up at the sky, that the moon is generally the exact same size of the sun, except for when it's at its closer part of its orbital trajectory around the Earth? It might look a little bit bigger and sometimes look a little bit farther away, but its mean size from an aspect ratio is identical to that which we see of the sun. And the great solar year, which was first talked of by Plato, is 25,920 years. Now, some say it's 24,000 years because time tends to speed up as we get to the other side of a cycle. And actually, we live in a binary star system, and our other star is Sirius A, the very large white star that is the brightest star in our sky. It's actually our second sun. Every star in the universe is probably part of a binary star system or sometime trinary star system, or maybe we just don't even see the patterns that are even bigger than that. But basically, we are 8.6 light years away from Sirius A. Interestingly also, if you look up right now the distance from Earth to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, it comes out to be just under 26,000 light years distance. So here's the same 25,920 showing up over and over again. This is the equatorial diameter of the sun, 864,000 miles. There are 86,400 seconds in a day. Do the math. 24 hours times 60 times 60. The mean diameter of Jupiter is 86,400. The orbital speed of the moon is 86,400 kilometers per day. And the orbital speed of Saturn is 86,000 or 864,000 kilometers per day. Now, do you think someone's trying to tell us something here? There are 216 minutes in the compass, 21,600. And then 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, so 6 cubed is 216. It's also the sum of angles of a cube, which is 2,160 degrees. Each of the precessional periods out of 25,920 years equals, so you just take 25,920, divide that by 12, you end up with 2,160. And then we have 21,600 nautical miles is exactly the equatorial circumference of the Earth. Now, what's interesting about that also is light speed is 186,000 miles per second. 186,400 is the number I like to use. But if you look at it in nautical miles, and I challenge you to go ahead and Google it, it's 161,810. So that's phi. That's the golden number, 16181. So interesting, and what we're really dealing with here is harmonic ratios. So this x-axis and the y-axis is simply placing a table here, and this was done by my friend Nala Bursi. Basically, you start with 3 to the third power, right, times 2 to the first power. And that gives us, 3 to the third power is just 27, times 2 is 54. This is octave doubling. 27 to 54 to 108 to 216 to 432, 864. These are the exact same numbers that we're seeing with the Da Vinci circle, right? Which was 8.64 inches, okay? And these numbers are the ones we'll see over and over and over again, and kind of commit them to memory because they are part of consciousness. Once they get embedded into your consciousness, you can't unsee them. They'll be everywhere. So the moon does have a radius of 1,080 miles and a diameter of 2,160 miles. Now, even the biggest reductionist of scientists would have to look at this and say, how in the heck is this all possible? That's what I'm talking about. And the moon represents the subconscious mind, the darkness, the pathos, the irrational, and intuition, and all the symbology that we think about for the moon. So the sun, right, the actual diameter matches that on the Da Vinci page, which is 864,000 miles, represents the conscious mind, the logos, and the light. Now the radius, and that actually means son of God, is 4.32 inches here, but it actually is 432,000 miles, right, for the sun, and it represents the brain, the rational mind, and the masculine. And right down the center, we have the diameter of the Da Vinci circle, which is, the outer circle, which goes all the way up to the top of the moon here, right? Remember the Da Vinci square, and then we exoscribe a square that you can still see around this, which is 10 inches by 10 inches. And the Da Vinci square is a diagonal of 10 inches. So as you inscribe circles and squares, the diagonal turns into the side length as you get larger and larger, right? And it goes the opposite the other way. So here we have a value of 10, which is the same as 1. It's just a fractal. Now, what about Earth? So Gaia, as it is named, it's interesting. We have two feminine archetypes, one being the Earth in Gaia. We have another one in the moon called Luna. And then we have Helios for the sun, which is the man. So why do we have two women and one man in this kind of like interesting structure we have of the solar system? Well, you could actually say that the moon is part of the Earth. And what Da Vinci is actually trying to tell us here is that, remember, he had this weird sort of offset to show us that this is actually a cube, shown in perspective, and the cube is the representation of both the moon and the Earth. So the alchemical symbol for the Earth is the cube. And no, it's not because it's flat. We don't live in a flat Earth and there's no dome. So please forget that. It's just, I actually think that as people ascend into fifth dimensional understanding, there will be an equal number of people, and God love them all, but there'll be an equal number of people that will end up descending into the second dimensional from a perspective standpoint. So their perspective will be limited to flat things. It's really bizarre, but that's kind of the only way I can kind of reconcile the two things in my mind. Now, if you're arguing that the Earth and our experience here is just all a matrix, that's a different discussion. I'll argue that, but still the holograph is a sphere and it's spinning. And yes, water can stay on the planet. It's not like a ball that you pour water on and then the water will spin off. There's something called gravity. So the cube is 6 to the third power, which equals 216, with interior angles summing to 2160 degrees. The Earth's equatorial circumference is 21,600 nautical miles, and the diameter of Earth itself is 7920. Interesting. So remember that 7920. Now the radius of Earth is 3960. Now, Tesla said all the secrets of the universe are in the numbers 3, 6, and 9. So this is what Da Vinci drew on the square, right up here. But actually the value at the top of the square is different than the value at the bottom of the square because it literally skews outward. It's not a square. The value at the bottom is 7.182 inches. You might remember that 7.18 number because that's from the 2.718 of Euler. And the top of the square is 7.07, 106, which is actually 1 over the square root of 2. So this is inside the box. And what is it that Euler does? It controls wave expansion and also moving outside the box. But basically, what is Da Vinci trying to tell us here? Well, first of all, there's more analysis to be done here because I believe that there's such thing as, just as we have squaring the circle, and I believe that Da Vinci has properly squared the circle. The scientific community and mathematicians of the day were looking through the wrong end of the telescope. They didn't understand these advanced relationships. Da Vinci spent 10 years studying this. He saw it as a game, right? It was definitely the hero's gamos in his mind. And as a Rosicrucian as well, they are all about the compass and square and squaring of the circle. So the measure of man across from here to here is referred to as the fathom. Okay, so this is 1 fathom, which is 6 feet or 72 inches. You would never hide something so that it could not be found. And I'm a cryptographer. You never hide something so that no one will ever find it. You hide it so someone will find it. But you're wanting them to go through certain steps of consciousness so that those findings can be had. So the measure of man, the 72, right? The sun plus mankind equals 936. The moon plus man equals 936. The difference being only the position of the decimal point. The earth plus man equals 864. And the earth minus man, right, equals 0.72. Now, this is fascinating stuff. For me, what is it really trying to tell us? Well, the Earth's diameter is 7,920 miles. So we have the 7.92, the 8.64, the 2.16, and the 7.2. All of that add up together to 25,920. 25,920 is the number of average breaths we take daily. We take a breath about every 3.3 seconds. An average life of 72 years represents 25,920 days. The Earth's precessional period is said to be 25,920 years. That's the Earth's wobble, right? So the Earth is spinning not only one direction, right? Not only is it moving around the sun, that would give it a second direction, but it's a gimbal because on its axis, the axis also spins around. And that cycle takes 25,920 years to complete. And you'll find that referenced by NASA. The speed of light in miles per hour squared, right? So if you take the speed of light in miles per hour, it's 671 million miles per hour. And that is 25,920 squared. And this value is also 1.61 squared, golden mean. It's right in the zone of the golden mean, and it relates exactly to time. And that is also that 1.6099 is the difference between the meter or the kilometer and the mile. So what is Da Vinci trying to say here? So we've got the moon that represents the divine feminine. We have the earth that also represents the feminine, Mother Earth. We never say Father Earth. We say Father Time, and we talk about the sun. So I guess we do have another male in the solar system, and the other male in the solar system is usually Kronos or Saturn. So we have diameter 10, right? The radius of 432, and the heart brain. What Da Vinci is telling us, the action of squaring the circle is bringing the logos, the logic of Euler, the square, the rational, to the irrational in equal proportion, in divine balance. It's not just that we see it in gender, that polarity exists everywhere. It's a condition of the universe. Everything has its equal and opposite. Every action has an equal opposite reaction. Here, the symbolism is the conscious mind merging, the light merging with the dark, sometimes referred to as shadow work. And then as soon as you transcend judgment of others, you transcend judgment of self. And that's the end of judgment. That is the end of judgment. When we talk about the judgment day, it should never have been about the concept of God enacting on us some sort of final judgment. It's the end of that judgment. It's the end of duality. I think the real message here for Da Vinci and for us from him is that we are all divisions of one. It all, just as we saw with the spiral of Theodorus, everything emerges from the number one. The illusion of time and the illusion of space are the same thing. There is no space per se. We conceive of it in our mind, so therefore we feel separate, and our whole lives are spent experiencing separation until we get to the point that we start to become aware of the darkness. You could say you have you and the inverse you. Or maybe another way to say it is you and the you inverse. You and the you inverse instead of universe. So that leads us into a world of duality, where the best representation I could think of here is this iceberg. If an iceberg were conscious, does it even know that there's any part of it underneath the water that is the iceberg itself? Let's say the consciousness would be above the water, so it might perceive a boat on the surface of the water. It might also perceive a bird in the air. It could also perceive the sun and the moon. But the subconscious is totally separated, and it's separated from a mirror at the surface. And this leads us to an existence of duality, of judgment. And the conscious mind wants nothing to do with the subconscious mind. From the time that we start to experience separation as children, we want to have disdain for the subconscious because that's the side that makes us do bad things. But what if there's really no such thing as good or bad in the first place?